Good morning and welcome back to Community Couch Time, a daily talk show where we talk about things that are important, things that are happening in our community, in our state, in this country, and internationally. Oftentimes, the topics that we discuss are ones that others aren't talking about. And the question is, why aren't we? And so now a word from Ms. Wallace.
Good morning, great minds and good people. I'm Ms. Tiffany Wallace, and thank you for having me for Community Couch Time. Now, let's start the discourse.
Good morning and welcome back to Community Couch Time. Today is a great day. I'm so excited. We have two really amazing persons here that are joining us to share a little bit about, Asian American and Pacific Islander history and solidarity and love. We're all about uplifting our people, and we are definitely excited about uplifting the AAPI relatives today. So let me give you a little information on who we have here. We have Ms. Estella Church, who is a theater teacher at Roybal Learning Center, which is very exciting. She is a first-generation daughter of immigrants with roots in Sivaii, Samoa, and Calabar, Nigeria, raised on Tongva land, South Los Angeles, Inglewood. She believes it is her duty to advocate for all those who look like her, stand as an ally for others in the margins, and forge clear paths for young people that connect our futures to our ancestors. That's very powerful. And let's see, Gabriel Tanglao honors his Filipino ancestors, fighting for justice through union activism by serving as associate director with the New Jersey Education Association. His primary focus is to build a movement for racial equity, affirmation, and literacy through professional development. And these two amazing human beings have a podcast. It's called Continental Shifts Podcast. And they're each the co-hosts of this podcast, where they navigate topics related to all things education, hip hop, unionism, organizing, AAPI issues, and more. That's a really awesome combo of different topics. That's wonderful. So I'd like to introduce now Gabriel Tanglao to share a little bit about himself and some of his poetry. Welcome, Gabriel.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the space. Good morning, everyone. I'm joining you from what's known as New Jersey, but it's actually Lenape land. So making sure that I lift up the indigenous land upon which we exist here in New Jersey. Gabriel Tanglao, he, him pronouns. So just wanted to lead off with a little poetry to introduce myself. My name is Gabriel Anthony Tanglao. My last name Tanglao means light, as in light a fire to blaze a trail. Lighten hearts and enlighten minds. Let the bright dreams of my brilliant students shine. The roots of my Filipino ancestors run deep, from the first Asian migrants in North America to Manny Pacquiao and Miss Universe, from the tribesmen that killed Magellan to the farm workers that built the labor movement. I am a proud public educator, and you're about to be schooled. And that's just a little excerpt, a little story of self. And I will hand it over to my comrade, colleague, sister, Estella.
Thank you, Gabe. And thanks again, Ms. Cardona, for having us. Talo Falava, Oluwingo, Estella Owoimaha-Church. And I also have a little introduction of self poem. So here it goes. Estella Leilani Afiekong Falatolu Pongi Owoimaha-Church. A name I had to run drills to keep straight. Couldn't spell it till I was 8 and had to find my life partner to complete it. A burden is what my name felt like for most of my life, until my journey to self grew to include all of my ancestors, their legacies, my birthright, until my love of self included all avenues and intersections at which I exist, until the weight of gifting a name worthy of the universe I birthed became heavier than any guilt or shame I ever tied to my mouthful of a name. I am Leilani Falatolu Pongi of Sivaii in the Atunuu o Samoa, Estella Afiekong of House Owima, first of her name, daughter of where the mermaids lie, descendants of wayfinders, cultivator of futures, designer of bridges connecting the past, present, and future. I'm a mother now, and my journey to self is tied to hers. She, the universe, requires I navigate safely. So I root down, reach back, and labor forward. Thank you for listening.
Wow, is it like too early to have this many goosebumps? Dang, you two just killed it. That was so powerful and beautiful. I'm so inspired right now. Thank you so much. Thank you. Honestly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for that. And so now I'd like to invite each of you to share a piece of like Asian American and Pacific Islander history that really has helped like shape your identity. And I'd like to invite Gabriel to share first.
Yeah, thank you for that space. One of the pieces of Filipino American history that I only learned later on in my learning journey, it wasn't something I learned in high school, wasn't something I learned through my K-12 experience, was the story of the Filipino farm workers that created the United Farm Workers Movement in solidarity with Brother Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta. Larry Itliong and Philip Vera Cruz are two of the organizers in that movement. What I want to talk about briefly is just the story of these labor organizers fighting for better working conditions, wages, in the face of oppression from management. It's something that resonates with me as a person who in the East Coast is active in my union space, is a former history teacher. It's a piece of history that I didn't encounter even in my teaching career until I attended a national conference that helped school me to this important piece of history. Why is this important to me specifically? I didn't realize that my life's work involved in education and union activism is actually connected to a long lineage and tradition of Filipino Americans that have not only organized in the farm workers movement, but also were pivotal and critical in helping organize in solidarity with other communities in Alaska with the canneries or in the plantations in Hawaii. And this piece of history, I think, is so important to me personally. And it also highlights the ways that erasure through white supremacy culture and Eurocentric curriculum can shape the narratives in ways that don't affirm or include or lift up or celebrate or value the contributions that AAPI communities bring to a space. And so that I don't take up too much space in this share, I just wanted to emphasize a few things in my poem that are also relevant in terms of gems that I discovered along the way. Just brief story. I remember in 4th grade, I was asked to do a report on the history of the discovery of the Philippine Islands. And through that research, I found out about Ferdinand Magellan, who was the discoverer of the Philippine Islands. What I didn't know actually is that Magellan was met with resistance in the Philippine Islands from a chieftain named Lapu-Lapu, who through the Battle of Mactan actually defeated Magellan and the colonizers in a act of resistance of indigenous lands, indigenous traditions, and indigenous lifestyle, which I now celebrate as someone who is following that tradition of not only labor organizing, but also revolutionary resistance against colonizers and oppression. So those are just actually two pieces of history that I wanted to lift up in this space.
Thank you so much. Those two also really speak to why it's important for ethnic studies, right? And those stories you should have known in your history classes, right? In high school, not, or even younger than high school, not until, you were off in the world looking for that knowledge yourself. So thank you so much for sharing that. That's really awesome. How about you, Estella? What is something that spoke to you?
Actually, what Gabriel shared is one that was really pivotal for me as well. And then there's another, but to what your point was, part of my introduction to self poem is that my identity crisis lasted far too long because ethnic studies was not a part, and I probably argue I'm still in the midst of it, trying to sort stuff out. And it's because I did not see Samoa or Nigeria anywhere growing up, and really didn't see Samoa until the last 2 or 3 years as I have actively sought it out. But one of the first API stories that really shifted the way I work, my practice, my whole understanding or worldview is the story of Larry Itliong, who I learned about maybe in the last 3 or 4 years. And as a theater teacher, Luis Valdez has always been a hero of mine. And I teach Zoot Suit all the time and about his work and his legacy and the impact of the arts on labor movements across the country and around the world. And to find out that I had done a disservice by leaving out the legacy of Larry Itliong really shifted the way I approach any text. And so now I'm really focused on telling whole stories. And so if there's no room for the whole story in our week or month or unit, then I'm not going to do that anymore, right? Like I have to be very intentional about fully representing everyone's story in that legacy that represents. So Larry Itliong's story has also impacted the way I teach every single day. In the last 2 or 3 years, I've sought out my Samoan roots, taking classes in the nights and over the summer, trying to learn the language and get connected. And one of the first things that I realized is that so much of who I am, my habits, the way I speak, things I enjoy to do, so much of it is like innate. It's in me. And I had no idea where it came from until I started taking my cultural and language classes in Samoan. One of the things that I learned is that the Samoan culture rests on 3 pillars, and that's love, respect, and service. And so service has always been super, super important to me, so much so that I have a West African tattoo that also symbolizes service, and a proverb on my arm. And so in South African or in Twi, the phrase is, oh, and I just lost it. But the symbol is Sankofa, which means to go back and get. And in Samoan, there's a proverb, Oleale le pule le tautua, which means the pathway to leadership is through service. And so that has always been central to my core. And I finally felt like I figured out where it comes from, like, if that makes sense. Like now I can pinpoint and learning that even my name tells me exactly what part of the island my people are from. And that was really, really impactful and emotional because I've never stepped foot on the island. And with climate change going the way it's going and the climate crisis being what it is, there is a possibility I may never get to step foot on our island. And so that was really special to learn. And I got weepy thinking about it, and I didn't expect that. So just digging into my ancestry, my legacy, and working really hard to, I guess, indigenize my identity in a way that I've never had the opportunity to do growing up in a K-12 system. And what it's also done is really shifted my ability to be in solidarity with our Indigenous people, our First Peoples here. And so now I am very intentional about when I introduce myself. I recognize the land that my ancestors came from, but also recognize that I am blessed to live on the land of the Tongva people, and remind folks of that and make sure that in every space that I'm in, I elevate that name, so that we never forget who to hand this land back to. when it is time to hand the land back, which is long overdue. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Estella. Yeah, super powerful. And that takes me to our last question, which you kind of spoke to a little bit, but you know, the question of solidarity, right? Right now, more than ever, solidarity is the key to our survival, right? Solidarity with one another, solidarity with our Mother Earth, right? Which you spoke to, Estella, is so powerful and important. So I want to go ahead and ask, you know, why is solidarity important to you all today in this climate? Gabriel, would you like to start with that?
Absolutely. Just to lift back up that story around the Delano grape strike, one of the things about that lesson is that the Filipino farm workers were working in collaboration with the Mexican farm workers, many of whom were speaking different language, literally different languages, as they sought to build solidarity around their shared cause. So why is solidarity important? Solidarity is critical for us to win a step towards our liberatory aspirations. And one nuance there is that solidarity is not easy. It's actually something that we all have to work towards, even in the face of conflict, even in the face of needing to build consensus, listen deeply, and find common ground so that we can get to that liberatory aspirational future.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That even means that sometimes we have to recognize our you know, how we've hurt one another, right? And to say sorry and to talk about it and figure a better way forward. Thank you so much for that. Estella, how about for you?
I think you said it, what you just said, but also what you said earlier about it's crucial to our survival. And I've had to find solidarity within myself, being Black and PI. Oftentimes there were times where I was not welcome in API spaces because anti-Blackness is real. So much so that there's a word in Samoan that equates to the N-word. And oftentimes in Black spaces, it was regularly pointed out to me that I am not full Black or Black enough. And my Blackness was always in question. And so solidarity, it's almost like I had to find it within myself first and learn to reconcile my mixed heritage, or not reconcile, but embrace is a better word, my mixed heritage, and recognize, and Audre Lorde said it, that I can walk into any space and be everything all at once or whatever I choose to be. But that's my prerogative. That's my right to decide. And so that has been important to me. But also Audre says, there's no such thing as a single issue story because we don't live single issue lives. And when we remember that, then I think it can be a little bit easier, at least help us take the step forward to be the best possible relatives we can be for one another. And like Gabriel said, it's about these nuanced conversations. We can and should have conversations about what is happening right now across the country to our AAPI siblings. And we can also do that without being anti-Black. And I know that it's not easy and it can be painful because what you said, Ms. Cardona, about recognizing our own internalized issues and then being able to say, I'm sorry, and move forward together, like in locked arms, in the same way that they did in the fields of Delano.
Thank you so much. I'm ready for that. I'm ready for that. That's what we need. And I'm ready to do that and to stand in solidarity with my AAPI siblings. Thank you too so much for being here. This takes us back to our Community Couch Time Daily Journal question. The question is, why is solidarity important to you? Tell us, we want to know. Thank you. Isang bagsag.